Hey guys, welcome back to ClearPath Retirement Radio. I am your host, Stewart Smith, with Mitch Davies here.
Welcome back.
We are a locally owned, South Carolinian owned retirement planning firm here based in Greenville, South Carolina. We are veteran owned and operated, and if that means something to you and you want to work with people who are local, people who you can come sit down with and look eye to eye with and have real courageous conversations about your retirement and what that could look like, and really start to get clarity and be able to make those retirement decisions with clarity and confidence of knowing you're going to be okay, and no matter what comes at you, you're going to be able to handle it. We're your guys.
That's right, Stewart.
And today we are having a really great discussion on a topic that gets brought up again and again with clients and prospects on Social Security decisions and how they can make or break you in retirement, costing you potentially or helping you make potentially hundreds of thousands of dollars. So that is our discussion today. You know, one of the things that we'll mention is that if you choose to go early at age 62, we mentioned you're taking a reduced benefit in the realm of 25 to 30% reduction permanently for the rest of your life. And if you do that and you are the higher income earner in your marriage, then you are not only taking that reduced benefit for yourself, but you're also taking that reduced benefit for your spouse. So something to think about there, and we want you to make sure that we put that on your radar. But second, if you do choose to go at full retirement age, and for most folks listening to this show, that's going to be in the 66 to 67 age range. And if you do choose to go at full retirement age, then you will get what we call your baseline benefit, 100% of your full retirement benefit. And, that's important when you're looking at like a spousal benefit where your spouse is going to be taking the spousal benefit, which would be half of yours. And if your spouse hasn't worked that much in the workforce and is looking at a much lower benefit than half of your Social Security, you definitely want to elect that spousal benefit and let them at least get half of yours. But even beyond that, Mitch, if you go from, let's say your full retirement age is age 67, if you push it off till age 70, which is when you have to declare, there's no reason to wait later than age 70, you're looking at an 8% annual increase each year of how much money you can get on an annual basis for the rest of your life. And not only that 8% increase, but also cost of living adjustments that are included in those 3 years. So, you're looking at about a 75 to 80% higher benefit than if you would have elected at age 62. You're also giving your spouse the highest possible survivor benefit.
That's huge.
So, those are huge things to be thinking about, because most people, when they get to the age of 67, they're not going to be super aggressive in their allocations and how they invest money. Right. So to be guaranteed 8% plus cost of living adjustments for 3 years would really be difficult to attain at that age. And, if you look at it like, hey, I may just take and start spending my IRA money or, money that I've saved to bridge me from that age 67 up to age 70 and then elect, then basically what you're doing is giving yourself 8% guaranteed return a year plus cost of living adjustments. And I don't know that doesn't make sense for most people.
It makes a lot of sense, Stewart. And, we go through this all the time at the office with clients. And I like to say, think of Social Security as an asset. Think of Social Security like an asset. It's got the same fundamentals of an asset. You've spent a long time building into it. You're contributing into this bucket of money that you're inevitably going to take for the rest of your life. It's really no different than a 401k in that regard, right? People will spend all this time trying to figure out the optimal withdrawal strategy for a 401k and how to make the most money. But to have a guaranteed bucket of money that you can, again, get an 8% in like inflation roll up on plus inflation adjustments, and that can be 10, 11% right there. To have that, a guaranteed bucket that you can do that, you need to treat it like an asset, and we need to plan for it like it's an asset, because once we make that decision, we can't undo it. So when you start looking at retirement income planning with this as an asset rather than just, oh, I'm about to retire, let me take my Social Security, it allows for so much more strategy and so much more planning.
Yeah. And I'll tell you, where we see that strategy doesn't make sense is in the rare instance where we're sitting with someone and we're talking about their longevity in their family, we're talking about their health status, and it becomes very evident to us really clearly that not only are they in poor health and don't have some issue going on that is going to impact their life expectancy significantly, but maybe they also say, hey, Stewart, everybody, my father, my mother, they all passed away in their early 70s, that sort of thing. Those things obviously impact. And if you're in that situation, I think it's pretty much a no-brainer. You're going to take it as soon as you can, and you're going to try to get as many checks as you can dealing with those type of variables. But, those are rare. That is a rare circumstance. I think the other circumstance where we see that potentially that strategy of waiting till age 70 doesn't make sense is when someone is in a very fixed income situation where they don't have a lot of assets and they need immediate income replacement the minute that they retire, as far as maybe they're going to retire at 65 and they need a check coming in immediately. There is no way to lean on assets to get them to a later time frame. And so, if you're in those circumstances, maybe it makes sense to go ahead and elect earlier than age 70. But if you have longevity in your family, and I mean, if people are living into their mid to late 80s, more than likely, doing it at age 70 is a huge deal because, it's the only guaranteed inflation-adjusted income source that is backed by the U.S. government that is a lifetime guarantee that you're going to get. So down the road, if you have some assets and down the road, maybe in your mid to late 80s, now all of a sudden you need long-term care. You need to go into a skilled nursing care facility and receive some very expensive care. Having that higher Social Security will certainly help the picture there.
Absolutely, Stewart. And this is why our number one rule at the firm is never take cocktail party advice, is what we call it. This is that advice where you're just talking to a friend and they're like, hey, I found this calculator online. You need to do this, and this will tell you the age you need to take it. I had a conversation like that a few weeks ago. And a client was like, hey, my friend said I need to use this guy on YouTube. He has a great calculator. And we did the calculator, and she said, 68 and a half is the perfect age for me based on the math. And I'm like, okay, well, let's talk about your cash flow for a bit. You're about to retire at 67. How does cash flow look? Well, we might have some gaps there. Okay, let's talk about family health. Let's talk about these things. And once you talk about these things, we could almost throw the calculator out the window because of the things you just mentioned. So the most important takeaway here, guys, is that no matter what some break-even math says, there's so much more factors to consider.
Yeah, and that is a dangerous situation when people use these general calculators and take general advice on this stuff. Yeah. Everybody has very unique circumstances. Everybody's at different asset levels. Everybody has different income sources. Everybody's health is dramatically different from one person to the next. And so, we always recommend, listen, sit down with someone who's really understands all of the moving parts when it comes to this type of decision. and really make sure that you're working through all of the different aspects that need to be addressed before you go and make a really important decision that, like we keep saying over and over again, cannot be undone. This is a permanent decision for you. So when we talk about key factors that should drive the decision, I would say, again, it has a lot to do with your life expectancy and your current health. Those are obviously very important factors. When we run break-even analysis for folks, typically they break even, if you're just talking about just straight break-even analysis, none of these other factors involved, they typically break even in that 78 to 82 age range.
Yeah.
But the real risk there is living longer than expected. And, married couples, probably at least one spouse lives into their 90s. It's very, very high statistically to see that nowadays. And, so this is a decision that needs to be made with very much care. And if you're struggling with this decision and you just really don't know what the optimal strategy is for your Social Security, and you and your spouse want to sit down with people who have been doing this, myself, for 2.5 decades now, of helping people optimize this and figure out the absolute best way to do this, then please go visit our website, clearpathretirement.com. You can call our office, 864-775-5033. We are a local Upstate business that is based here in the Upstate, and we'd love to hear from you. We'll be right back to talk more about Social Security.